Undercover boss buys coffee at his diner. Stops cold when waitress reveals her paycheck. Not everything that runs smoothly is truly okay. Sometimes, the misalignment lies in places no one bothers to look closely at. Early morning, no rain. But the sky was vaguely overcast, as if the city itself was holding on to a question without an answer. On a small street corner, Sunrise Diner branch number 19 lit up its open sign as usual. Familiar smells, toasted bread, fried eggs, freshly brewed coffee began wafting out from the back kitchen. The diner's rhythm started up steadily. A few customers trickled in, staff took their positions, the POS screen lit up for the first time that day. Everything looked fine, seemed fine, and that was exactly why Michael Carter, CEO of Sunrise Restaurant Group, came back. Not with a business card, not with an inspection team, just with a low-pulled cap, a worn-out khaki jacket, faded jeans, and the unhurried gait of a customer in no rush. He sat at the single table by the window, a spot that let him see the entire counter, not just the servers, but what lay behind their smiles, behind the hurried footsteps that no one paid attention to. According to internal reports, this branch was one of the most stable in the system. Consistent revenue, customer satisfaction index rated as good, no major internal incidents in the past 6 months. But Michael didn't believe in what was listed as good. Because alongside all those impressive figures, there was one unexplained issue. The staff turnover rate was twice the chain's average, along with a series of anonymous reviews noting, "At this place, even doing things right might not be enough. Feels like I'm just a pair of hands, not a person. I mean, shift assignments follow a process, but no one knows why they're denied access." Michael once wrote in the company's cultural handbook, "A transparent system will protect itself from distortion." But this morning, he returned to verify the opposite. If someone is hiding something behind the facade of standard procedures, it's not the software, it's a human being. If you also believe these truths deserve to be shared, hit subscribe now, because we still have many untold stories. The first cup of coffee was brought out, the kitchen flame lit up again, and the story not yet included in any report was about to be revealed. There are words not meant to draw attention, but if heard by the right person, they can be powerful enough to make an entire system stop and ask itself, what have we been missing? The coffee cup was gently placed on the table, with just enough steam to mask the unnamed tension hanging in the air. The one who brought it out was a young woman, petite build, hair tied up neatly, shoes more worn than the uniform but clean. Her name was printed on the chest tag, Lena. Not too outstanding, not invisible. Just the kind of person who might serve 100 customers a day, yet barely anyone remembers when they actually met her. "Good morning, your black coffee. No sugar as requested," she said softly, just loud enough to hear. Michael nodded, smiled, and dropped a question he'd asked hundreds of times in field surveys, but this time, it wasn't just a routine check. "How's the morning shift treating you? Doing okay?" The question was on script, but the answer far exceeded expectations. Lena paused for a beat, as if she hadn't had time to come up with a polite, standard reply. Then she gave a slight smile, the kind meant to deflect, not express. Her gaze drifted not toward her customer, but somewhere else, maybe toward the fridge at home. "I eat after the kids. Haven't had enough money for 2 full meals in a long time." She said it like she was justifying why she skips lunch. But to Michael, it sounded like she had just tapped directly into the weakest vein of a system he had once built with his own hands. Not a complaint, not an accusation, just a truth simple and painfully raw. A truth that didn't appear in any report. Michael wrapped his hand around the cup. The coffee was still hot, but his mind was growing cold. He had written, signed, and reviewed the very policies around minimum employee welfare, promising that no one would leave a shift with an empty stomach. And yet this morning, at table number 6, that policy was defeated by a single, unintentional sentence. From that moment on, he knew this visit was no longer just a routine inspection. It had become a silent investigation. And Lena, the one who brought him the coffee, had just accidentally become the key that unlocked a truth he could no longer ignore. Injustice doesn't always come from shouting or insults. Sometimes it's wrapped up in a simple tap on a machine where your name never shows up on the receipt. Michael stayed seated at the corner table for over an hour. The coffee cup remained the same, but his eyes missed no movement in the restaurant. Everyone who passed by he took note, relying on habits honed from reading truth in the way staff placed a tray or bowed to apologize. Lena, the server from earlier, barely ever stopped. She remembered orders without writing them down, responded quickly to complaints about delayed food, and cleaned tables proactively without being asked. If Sunrise had ever taught anything called mindful service, then Lena was carrying it out, every word of it, without needing a reminder. But then, he noticed something that repeated like the ticking of a clock. Every time a customer prepared to pay, Lena stepped back. She didn't touch the machine. She didn't perform any actions. She simply bowed slightly, as if handing over the rest of the responsibility to someone else authorized to complete the transaction. And that person was always the same. Ryan. Light-colored dress shirt, slick-back hair, faint cologne. He didn't walk to the table. He stood waiting at the counter, waiting for the customer to pull out their wallet, waiting for the POS machine to light up, and operated it as if it were his default right, not something anyone was allowed to question. Michael didn't need to ask to know Ryan was the nephew of Doug, the shift manager, a detail he had once glossed over in the staff listing, now resurfacing with chilling clarity. By midday, Michael left the diner. No one noticed, but he didn't head back to headquarters. He went straight to the tech division, where the chain's POS permission servers were located. With founder-level access, he opened the personnel database for branch number 19. The first name to appear, Lena Pozaxis, Denied. Note, temporarily pending reevaluation of capability during peak hours. Suggested by Doug H., last updated 5 months ago. Michael frowned. He switched over to the internal training section. Results, POS handling module. Lena, status, completed. Evaluation, excellent. Completion date, 6 months ago. A person who had full skills, completed official training, received top scores, yet was still denied access to the POS system, with a vague reason that was never updated. He continued pulling up the digital tip statistics from the past 30 days. Ryan D., POS operations, 86% of total transactions, average tip per shift, highest in the branch. Lena T., actual service, 58% of tables. Digital tips received, 0. Michael sat silently for a moment. All the data was correct. All systems were running smoothly, and that very stability was the most frightening part. The system he designed to prevent bias could still be legally manipulated by those who knew how to rearrange access rights. Fairness, in the end, wasn't stolen by software. It was stripped away piece by piece by people who knew when to stay silent and who took away permissions from those who always bowed their heads and served. Michael closed his laptop. His eyes stayed fixed on Lena's name in the system dashboard. He didn't see a staff member being excluded. He saw an entire system functioning technically right, but ethically wrong. And he knew, tomorrow, everything must start over. Michael stood up from his desk, not rushing, but not allowing himself to hesitate any longer. He walked to the data monitoring room, where access to branch security footage from the past 90 days was restricted to CEO-level clearance only. Branch number 19, 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. the past 4 days. His voice wasn't loud, but firm enough for the internal coordinator to understand this was no longer a routine audit. The screen lit up, playing frame by frame. From the overhead camera angle, Lena's every move replayed clearly. She served guests with both hands, balancing a tray carrying 4 coffee cups. She stepped back when the customer nodded, signaling they were ready to pay. Ryan stepped forward, without looking at her, picked up the POS machine, processed the payment, nodded, smiled, then walked away. That situation kept repeating like a deliberate slide into invisibility. Lena does the work. Ryan takes the credit. Lena fades. Ryan appears. Michael didn't take his eyes off the 6th video segment from day 3. The camera angle showed Lena bending down to pick up a napkin from the floor. The customer at table 4 smiled, nodded, and pulled out their card. She stood up, just about to turn back when Ryan appeared from behind her shoulder, tapped the POS as if that motion was second nature. Lena stepped back, still holding the napkin. Her eyes blinked lightly, no anger, no question, just acceptance. Michael paused the footage. He didn't see an employee being shut out of a system. He saw an entire habit silently programmed and accepted. No one yelled at her. No one put up a rejection sign. Just each day, the POS lit up when Lena stepped back. And someone else stepped forward, as if everything was functioning normally. He switched to the second screen, the POS Access Permission Tracking Board. In 5 months, there hadn't been a single line suggesting permission upgrade for Lena. No feedback. No complaints. No voice. A system designed to operate on fairness had been running entirely on who gets to hold the machine. Michael knew. Tomorrow morning, he would walk into that diner no longer as an anonymous customer, and nothing would be allowed to operate in silence anymore. But right now, he wrote a line in his notebook not to remember but to commit. It's not a system error. It's intentional invisibility by design. Tomorrow, the light must return to the place it was once kept out. Some truths don't knock. They just walk in, at the right moment, to the right person, without waiting for permission. Friday, 7:41 a.m. The sky was ash gray. A light breeze drifted through the slightly open window of Sunrise Diner Branch 19. Everything began like every other morning. Customers ordered coffee. The kitchen lit up. The POS screen turned on. Maya was carrying a tray with 3 pancake plates toward table number 4. Doug stood behind the counter. Ryan adjusted his shirt cuff, holding the payment device as if it were an extension of his arm. Then, the door opened. No one looked up right away. Not until 3 people wearing white shirts with name tags reading, "Internal Audit, Sunrise HQ," walked in. Following them was a tall man whose face had once appeared in the new hire training manual, once referred to as the man who created all of this. Michael Carter, no disguise, no pretense, just a steady gaze and a silence so heavy, it froze the entire diner for a few seconds. Doug froze. "Mr. Carter, I didn't know." "Yes," Michael interrupted, "because none of you expected I'd come back." He nodded to one of the auditors. A laptop was connected to the large screen behind the counter, the one usually used to display new menu items or weekly promotions. Now, it displayed the truth. Maya T. Service coverage, 58% of tables. POS operations, 0 times. Digital tips received, 0. Ryan D. POS operations, 86%. Actual table service, 14%. Tips received, highest in the branch. Next came a screenshot of an internal email. "Just keep Maya in service. If she handles the POS, it'll be harder to control the tips. Ryan does it better. She's quiet. She won't say anything." A beat of silence. No one touched their food. No one operated the register. Only the faint sound of breathing and a soft sob from a young staff member as they saw their colleague's name appear on the screen. Michael turned around, his voice low but firm. "No need to raise it. We built this system so that those who truly do the work are truly recognized. No one should have to stand behind a permission access. No one should have to learn silence just to survive." He walked slowly toward Doug, who was clutching the shift roster like a meaningless shield. "Doug," he said, "you didn't manipulate the system with software. You manipulated it with choices. You chose who gets to appear and who doesn't." Michael then turned to Ryan, still standing next to the POS terminal, motionless. "And you weren't wrong for using the machine. You were wrong for treating it as a default right, instead of a responsibility earned through effort." Restored. 2 envelopes were pulled out. Immediate termination notices, effective on the spot. No discussion, no defense. No one objected, because there was nothing left to defend. Michael turned toward the restaurant, now packed with customers and staff frozen in place. "Starting today," he declared, "all Sunrise Diner branches will operate under the original tip-sharing principles. The server is the one who gets recognized. The one who operates the POS must be the person physically present at the table. All transactions displayed publicly, in real time. No more pending evaluations. No more temporary locks. No more privileges hidden under the label of internal management. Ends." Finally, he looked toward Maya. She was still holding the tray of egg pancakes, but her eyes no longer avoided his. Michael stepped closer, his voice soft but clear with every word. "Thank you for not walking away, even when we were blind to your presence." Maya gently gripped the tray, then nodded, not as a gesture of thanks, but as a confirmation that today, for the first time, she was no longer part of the background. When someone who had been unnamed for months was finally called out correctly in front of the whole diner, without having to say a single word, Maya took a deep breath, the tray in her hand still perfectly balanced as always, though her hands now trembled slightly, not from fear, but because something inside her had just been released. A pressure long frozen in her chest was finally beginning to melt. Slowly, a bell chimed at the door. A new customer had just walked in. But no one turned to look, not because they were being impolite, but because they were witnessing something rarely seen in the service industry. Justice being publicly displayed. Michael nodded once more to the audit team. The screen shifted to a supplementary report panel, number of tables served by each employee, past 30 days. Ratio of POS transactions matched to actual service. Access status, open vertical bar, restricted vertical bar, denied. On Maya's row, 3 red labels appeared. Denied, denied, denied. Next to Ryan's name, open, open, open. A soft exhale came from the kitchen corner, not from a guest, but from a younger staff member who had once thought, Maybe I'm just not good enough to be trusted with the terminal. Now they knew it wasn't their skills being denied. It was their voice. Michael turned back from the counter. He pulled a thin sheet of paper from his blazer pocket. This time, not a warning, not a memo, but an immediate policy change order. He placed it on the counter, then turned to a newly dispatched senior supervisor, temporarily replacing Doug. Please help me ensure this. The moment an employee completes POS training, their access is granted. No pending reviews, no waiting for internal reports, and all access rights must be monitored in real time at headquarters. The supervisor nodded. The screen behind him turned to a blue background. Large text appeared, like a pledge that needed no speech. Transparency is not a feature, it's a standard. The guests applauded. No cue, no announcement. Just a shared understanding they had just witnessed a quiet reset of values in real life. Another staff member, someone who used to work the evening shift with Maya, stepped beside her, said nothing, but gently placed a hand on her shoulder as if to say, "You see it now." Maya set the tray down for the first time all morning. Her hands were empty. She didn't lower her gaze. She looked straight at Michael and gave a small nod. She was no longer someone receiving orders from the system. She was now part of it. Michael looked into her eyes and knew this system had just been updated not by code, but by a human being. In Hevering, fairness is not a slogan hanging behind the counter. It's a repeated action long enough to become culture, strong enough so that no one gets left behind. 1 month later, early morning sunlight stretched gently across the tiled floor of Sunrise Diner Branch number 19. The diner was still lively, but no longer tense with hurried stress. Between the hum of the coffee machine and the rhythm of greetings, there were now natural nods exchanged among colleagues, as if everyone was finally being seen. Just behind the counter, a new digital board lit up line by line. Live tip sharing, updated in real time, staff confirmed, no filters. Each time a bill was processed, the name of the server appeared alongside the tip amount recorded. No more wait until the end of shift. No more, I'll gather it and sort it out later. Only transparency, immediate and undeniable. Maya stepped out from behind the counter wearing a dark gray uniform with blue trimmed edges, the kind worn by junior managers. Her new name tag was pinned neatly. Maya T, assistant manager. Her hair hadn't changed, but the way she walked no longer resembled someone who once avoided the POS terminal out of habit and survival. Now, she moved through the diner as if she were the one setting the heartbeat of the space. At the familiar corner table, where everything had once begun with a simple cup of coffee, Michael Carter sat quietly. No notebook, no audit team, just an older man with eyes as calm as someone returning to a place that had once lost its rhythm, but had now found its pulse again. Maya approached and set the coffee cup in front of him. No welcome speech, no script, just a single line, soft yet unforgettable. This morning's breakfast is no longer the one where I go hungry. And a free. Michael didn't speak right away. He reached out and lifted the coffee cup. The aroma was the same, the taste just as bold as every morning. But this time, within the rising steam from the rim, he sensed something different. Not the quality of the brew, but the person who poured it, the one who was once excluded from the tip report, the one who wasn't allowed to touch the POS, the one who once said, "I eat after the kids." Now, that very person was the one pouring fairness back into every procedure. Michael nodded, not in thanks, but as a confirmation, "We see you now, and you're still here." Maya turned away back to work, but not to endure anymore, to rebuild, shift by shift, transaction by transaction, gaze by gaze. Fairness doesn't come from policy. It comes when those who deserve to be seen are no longer hidden. Michael remained seated, fingers lightly rotating the cup on the table, eyes following Maya as she returned behind the counter. Her movements no longer carried the weight of trying to prove her worth. They had become the gestures of someone who knows she belongs. At the register, a new employee, Ben, around 19, was handling his first order of the day. He bowed slightly, fingers trembling as he pressed the payment button. The digital board lit up. Order number 0074, Ben L., $3 tip, confirmed at 8:03. He blinked, then looked toward Maya as if seeking approval. She didn't need to walk over. She just nodded, soft, decisive. And in that very moment, Michael saw something no report could ever capture. A culture of fairness isn't about how tips are split. It's about knowing that no one needs permission just to be seen. Half the coffee was gone. He set the cup down, pulled a thin sheet of paper from his blazer, a copy of the proposal he was set to present to the executive board next week. One line stood out in bold: pilot program, lead from the floor, launching from Sunrise Branch number 19. All new managers must complete at least one shift per month working as frontline staff. Goal: never forget what happens beneath the lines of data. He didn't need anyone to read it right away, because if someone like Maya had once been overlooked, then the system must learn to see again, with real eyes and a real heart. At the counter, a regular waved for more hot water. Maya no longer looked around for someone else to handle it. She stepped forward, hands still as swift as ever, but her eyes were different, no longer lowered, no longer apologizing for delays she didn't cause. Just a new manager doing familiar work in a system that had finally changed. Michael stood up. No farewell, none needed. He stepped out of the diner, leaving behind the familiar jingle of the wind chime and a cup of coffee nearly empty. But in his heart, he knew trust had just been brewed again, not with hot water, but with courage. Not every voice needs to shout to be heard. Sometimes it only takes someone patient enough to stay and a system brave enough not to look away.